Mark, we're ready to go.
Okay, thank you very much, Joey. Good morning, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is a meeting of the ALCOSAN Advisory Committee for November 16th, 2021. I want to remind everybody that this meeting is being recorded. Those of you who don't know me, my name is Mark Samponia. I'm a councilman from the Borough of Greentree, and I'm also the vice chair of this committee. Mr. Rogers is off someplace in his neighborhood today, so I'm taking his place to run the meeting. First thing we need to do is have a roll call, please. So could we do that, please, Stephanie?
You need to unmute Stevie.
Good morning, Nick Bianchi, Lisa Werder-Brown, Lloyd Cunningham,
Here.
Dan DeMarco,
Here.
Patricia DeMarco,
Present.
Tina Doucet, Ariam Ford Graver, Nick Resock,
Here.
Mark Heckman, Rebecca Kiernan,
Here.
Ken Lasada,
Here.
Ruth Ann Omer,
Here.
Stanley Paps, Will Pickering, Mary Ellen Ramage, Tim Rogers, Mark Samponia,
Here.
Kathy Sapp, Danielle Ventresca. I have 8.
That's not a quorum.
No, it is not.
So we should skip the minutes.
Right, we'll dispense with the approval of the minutes since we do not have a quorum. And we'll move right on to the next item on the agenda, which is an update from Mr. Valerian, Director of Communications. Joey?
Thank you, Mark. Hi, everybody. Good morning. Hopefully next month's meeting, that's my goal at least, I will be providing you the long-awaited communications kit. It's probably more than you ever wanted to know, and then it's not going to be enough. And so if we hit that sweet spot in between the two, I think we've done a good job. These will be printed pieces. Some are small, some are larger. It's going to give you an opportunity to kind of use what works for you when you're out talking to your constituents. So be on the lookout for that. Secondly, for those who did not see it, I'm going to attempt to share my screen here and show you the KDKA piece that ran a couple of weeks ago. So let's see if this is going to work.
But at what cost? As we've been reporting, your ALCOSAN water and sewer bill is going up again.
Yeah, the reason is a massive project to fix our ancient sewage system, including a network of underground tunnels 18 miles long. New at 6:30, KDK investigator Andy Sheehan digs into the controversial project and how much it's going to cost you.
It's the largest public works project in the history of the region, $2.5 billion to clean up our rivers and streams. Problem is, you're on the hook to pay for it, and not everyone's on board. The tunnels are finally coming. Over the course of the next decade, subterranean Pittsburgh will look like this. Miles and miles of underground tunnels designed to capture billions of gallons of combined sewer overflows, which continually pollute our rivers and streams. And under a federal consent order, ALCOSAN says it doesn't have a choice.
These tunnels have to come. In order to meet the deadlines in the consent decree that was lodged in 2019, that we have to have tunnels, and it has to start immediately.
The project promises to finally clean our waterways, but environmentalists and others object to the method. They prefer eco-friendly projects like rain swallows, green roofs, and porous pavement, which soak up the excess rain before it gets into and overloads the sewers.
Our communities need our solutions that are green, that are resilient, and that bring benefits to our community. ALCOSAN's gone the opposite direction with tunnels under the river.
Here's Here's the problem. Every time we get a heavy rain, it overloads the system. And sewage-laced water flows out of gates like this one, polluting our rivers and streams at 9 billion gallons a year. After pursuing a green first strategy, the authority now says green projects would fall far short of addressing the problem.
It cannot carry the day, not for the volume of overflows that we experience in our region.
And so these tunnels are necessary.
They are absolutely necessary.
Beginning with the 6-mile-long Ohio River Tunnel, a boring machine with a drill head 18 feet in diameter will carve an underground passageway along all the 3 rivers, creating one gigantic holding tank. Since there's no federal or state funding available for projects like this, the money will come from you, the taxpayer. The ALCOSAN portion of your bill has more than doubled over the past decade and is on a trajectory to double again. In the past 10 years, the bill for a house using 12,000 gallons of water a year went from $228 to $513. And ALCOSAN just announced it will raise rates by 7% each year for the next 5 years, meaning your annual bill will jump to $791 and will continue to climb for the length of the project.
So this is the new East Headworks facility.
The authority is currently putting $500 million into expanding the treatment plant, which will more than double its capacity. And the actual construction of the tunnels is expected to start in 2025. The network will be mostly unseen and underground, but will require about a dozen access shafts like this one, 20 yards across and 150 feet deep. Opponents say they will mar the riverfronts the city has worked so hard to reclaim for development and recreation. And they say the battle is not over.
I think people in this community are continuing to fight for our riverfronts, continuing to fight to make the plan greener.
The environmentalists may not like it, but the authority is now committed to this wet water plan, including the inclusion of these catchment tunnels, which they say will achieve the greater end, which is cleaning up our rivers. Reporting at the ALCOSAN treatment plant on the north side, Andy Sheehan, KDKA News.
And there you go. Happy to answer any questions about either one.
Dan, this is Ruth Ann Omer. Nice to see you. I just want to tell you I'm really excited for next month. I've been the annoying person asking about this communication plan because as everybody knows, I talk too much. So I'm really looking forward to it. And hopefully we can get a look and maybe give feedback a little bit and go from there. So I'd be happy to do that ahead of time if you want. But again, thank you so much. And I look forward to next month's meeting and your smiling face explaining it to us. Thank you.
Let's just be clear that when we speak of next month's meeting, we are speaking of January, not December.
I'm sorry.
So we're all on the same page. I don't want Ruth Ann to be upset for Christmas.
Arletta, thank you so much because I have so much going on. I did need that reminder, so I appreciate it. It'll be my after Christmas present. Thank you.
Patty, you have something to comment?
Yes, I have a question about whether any of the proposed components of the infrastructure bill that was just signed could be used to help fund the infrastructure improvements that we're talking about here in the beginning, since it begins later than this year.
The answer to that is we're meeting with our lobbyists and also with our delegation to try to make sure that we can get money through the infrastructure package.
Yeah, because it seemed like that was an area that was being addressed in the legislation as I've seen it so far.
Mm-hmm.
This should be eligible for some federal funding assistance because the purpose is definitely cleaning up and expanding capacity. So I would hope that we can be active in securing whatever funds are eligible for that. Thank you.
And we have a lot of the business community supporting our requests too.
Yeah, and I mean, anything we can do to mitigate the impact on ratepayers is really important.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, that's my job.
One other question, I would like to know whether there's a process for separating water usage that does not go into the sewer, like for urban gardens or for maintaining outdoor property plantings. If that is in your water bill, then it automatically goes into your sewer bill, but that water is not going into the sewer. Is there any way to make a separation of those kinds of uses, and what would be necessary to do that?
I'm going to toss that to Arletta.
And Arletta is going to have Karen talk about credit meters, which really would not apply in this circumstance because of the limited volume we're talking about. But the committee should be at least aware that credit meters are available to offset large volumes that are not coming into the system. Karen?
Thank you, Arletta. Just to follow up on what Arletta says, our customer service and billing department has a process that they can go through. There's an application process that a user can apply to have a credit meter installed in their home or business that would track the amount of water that's used that doesn't flow into the system. There is a cost associated with a credit meter. It isn't cheap. And so it is something that is used for, usually you see it mostly like if individuals have a swimming pool or something along those lines where they're going to be filling a pool up every year and they want to make sure that that large volume of water does not flow into their sewer bill. But there is a process. It is available through our customer service and billing department. And if there are individuals that you know of that would benefit from that program or would like to have more information, we'd be more than happy to provide that to them if they would reach out to us.
Patricia,
So I have a question
wonder-
about that. I'm sorry. I have a question about that, Karen. That's kind of interesting. So swimming pools is an interesting piece. You live in a combined sewer area. It's harder to do something like that. So would they be specifically for areas that are separated, I guess, or combined? I mean, does it matter? I see Arletta saying it doesn't really matter.
No.
I see everybody shaking their head like, Darla, stop.
No, it doesn't matter. I mean, the flow meters are available. The credit meters, the deduct meters are available regardless if you're in a combined community or a separated community.
How do they hook up? Now I'm fascinated. Of course, we can do this offline, but like I think about my garden in my front yard, right? But we're not talking about my garden. We're talking about water that I use.
Right. Well, this would be water that you use that would not come back into the system. So they have the schematics again up at customer service and billing. I don't have them in front of me right now, but we would be more than happy to get you that information, Darla.
I think it would be fascinating to understand it. It's something I've not heard about, and now I think it's interesting because I water my garden, right? It doesn't go anywhere. Maybe, I don't know. How do you prove that? Those are the kinds of questions that I'm curious about. Thanks, Karen.
Sure. And again, watering your garden wouldn't really qualify because it would be cost prohibitive. There's a cost associated with having the credit meter. So in order for that to happen, just if you're doing just watering your garden or watering your house plants or doing routine things like that, it's cost prohibitive to go down this route. It's more for big ticket items.
Got it.
And I will just say, this is Ruth Ann. I have many residents get these credit meters. ALCOSAN was always great if you call customer service explaining it. Some people use it for the big ticket items like they're filling their pool. Maybe they had an irrigation system, but it can't always work out sometimes, but it's definitely worth exploring because Patricia's correct. You do have some water. And if you ever have a leak in an irrigation system or something, ALCOSAN and the water company will work with you one time and get you a credit. So, but I will agree, Darla, if you're just watering a garden or something smaller, it's probably not cost effective, whatever, at this point. But I just would encourage people because yes, people have had great success.
Do we have any further questions on Joey's presentation? Questions for him?
Yeah, I was wondering if there's going to be a future presentation or opportunity to see what the surface disruption is going to be along the trunk lines or the tunnels. There is. Okay.
Absolutely. Not today, but absolutely.
Okay.
Well, you know what? We should probably take a field trip. I'm thinking February. Maybe February. No, just kidding. Field trip in the spring.
I'll go.
I'll go too. I think that it was well done. Kim, Michelle, you guys handled yourself perfectly. I think the only part that bothers me is given the significant investment in Grow, I mean, like a ton of millions of dollars, that there's still this, kind of what I would consider to be this pushback without acknowledging the level of investment that has been made by ALCOSAN and the municipalities in green infrastructure. Because it's not like one municipality is doing it 100%, they all have to do a match. And so in a lot of levels, there's no acknowledgement that these communities are working their butts off along with ALCOSAN to do this work. So that was the only kind of part that it's too bad that it was missing.
Hey, Darla, I've been in this business for 20 some years. You know the media. You just want to scream. It's so frustrating. That whole story, it stunk as far as I'm concerned. But
Dan, I appreciate that. I've been doing this work for, I don't know, way too long, and I'm still like Pollyannish.
No, you're not Pollyannish. I agree with you. It's just,
It does stink. It does stink. It does stink. But ALCOSAN doesn't.
We know what's going on. We know what we're doing. We know what we need to do. We know we're doing the right thing. The media, they just want to, beat up the public officials and the government, and without focusing on our goal. What's the goal here? Don't you all realize that, this is for the better of our community, of our economy, but, forget about critical thinking in today's, social media age.
What was noticeable in their omission was the fact that tunnels already exist. How many miles of tunnels are already there? They made it sound like this is all new, and it's not all new. We're adding on to an existing system. So, by omission, they implied some things that aren't really true. Patty, you have a comment?
I think in our rebuttal, or possibly we should invite the press to our field trip. I think we need to give an exclamation point to the green operations that are already going on, not only through ALCOSAN, but also in most of our communities. I know that, for example, Aetna can document reduction of the storm overflows from the green initiatives that they've taken to manage stormwater in their area. And it has effectively, controlled some of the flooding that they've had in the past. I know that our community has just been escalating the efforts to plant and replant trees, especially in areas that DOT is digging up like mad for, I don't know what reason, but they're taking out a whole bunch of trees, and we're insisting that they be replaced. It's important that we recognize the connection between the tree canopy in Pittsburgh, especially on so many of our slopes, in the role of keeping the stormwater under control. People need to get that connection and understand when they come to us wanting trees taken out, that has implications for the water management system as well. So I think if any response that we develop, especially at any TV or videoed response that we can generate, should really emphasize what we're already doing extensively in all of our communities to provide green infrastructure already.
Excellent point.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just briefly.
Absolutely.
Kim and Michelle, how much time did you spend with Andy?
close to 2 hours. So,
And all of those things were discussed, as Dan pointed out.
everything was discussed.
We can't control it. We put it out there. What hits the cutting room floor hits the cutting room floor. That I wouldn't want you to think, I wouldn't want the committee to think that we did not make that effort to make those points.
Yeah, that's a given. I know it's not our fault, anybody's fault in ALCOSAN, or it's just the media. They're just a pain.
Okay, I just one other comment that I will make on the credit meter scenario is large commercial buildings that use cooling towers for their air conditioning system. A cooling tower application is a good application, and it's significant if it's of significant size for a credit meter application. Let's move on now, since we already sort of alluded to this through that television piece, to a discussion of rates with Ms. Fantoni.
Good morning, everyone. I just want to bring everyone up to speed on rates. So I am again going to attempt to share my screen. Let me know if you can see the presentation.
Yes.
All right, great. Let's start from the beginning. Okay, now I know we've discussed rates on several occasions, so just stop me if you have questions. Just a brief review of what the process looked like that we go through. Again, we've talked about this probably 3 or 4 times already. It's a complex process. I mean, this isn't easy. We're not just sitting here pulling rates out of a hat. We start with where we are with final numbers after the audit was completed last year. So we really started the process in April. We are looking to, we do a rate study with CDM Smith. We're looking to provide for ongoing support for our existing capital, which is we have a 1 billion plant. So we have to operate and maintain that existing plant. We have to take into consideration the size and the complexity of the legally mandated clean water program. And I believe everybody on this committee now is well aware of the complexity and size involved in that program. There's a lot of moving pieces, so we have to look at the timing of when those costs are going to hit, what those costs are going to be. And so we have to have some flexibility with meeting those requirements. We have to meet our debt service. We are heavily leveraged. We are going to continue to be heavily leveraged. We don't put on a program like the Clean Water Program without having to borrow most of that. Most of that program will be debt funded. We do have a component of the Clean Water Program that is funded through cash. So we have included in the rate study probably almost $900 million in the next 15 years that is going to be cash funded. And then obviously we have to meet the requirements of our trust indenture. So we have debt service coverage ratios that we must meet. Again, CDM Smith does a detailed model rate study for us. We take a close look at that. We look at all the assumptions that go into that. I mean, there is a host of assumptions that make up that rate study, from inflation to timing of debt to what our borrowing rates are going to be. So there is a significant amount of work involved in compiling and reviewing that rate study. Once that's all done, we start with the briefing process and we go out and we discuss where we think we need to be in order to move forward with the legally mandated Clean Water Program, plus all the other requirements that we have related to operations and maintenance. What we did is we came up with a 5-year rate resolution. It was reviewed internally and also with the board, and the board approved the 5-year rate resolution in October. So that's the process. We looked at the opportunity cost. So really, again, this kind of is the other side of the coin. If we don't have a proactive rate strategy, what happens? Well, our ability to regionalize the 267 miles of intermunicipal sewers is put into jeopardy. I mean, we can't regionalize and maintain those sewers if we don't have the rates in place to do that. We would have to increase our long-term borrowing requirements. And anyone who is familiar with borrowing knows the more you have to borrow, the higher your total cost of your project will be. The more we can cash fund up front, the lower those total costs are going to be in the long run. We would jeopardize our excellent and stable bond ratings. So again, the better your bond ratings are, the cheaper your borrowing costs, which again lowers your interest costs, lowers your insurance costs on those bonds, and would increase our borrowing costs significantly. And when you're looking to go into the market for several $1 billion worth of debt, that's a significant cost. And also, if we would not have a proactive rate strategy, we would unlikely be able to implement the Clean Water Plan and keep everything under the 2.0 regional residential indicator threshold, which is set by the EPA, which is our target, which is one of the things that we take into consideration when we look at the rate strategies. So what did we end up recommending? We end up recommending, as you saw in that KDKA article, 7% for the next 5 years. So each year for the next 5 years, our rates will increase by 7%. What this does is it keeps the rate increase consistent with what it's been the last 3 years. So we are going to go 7%. So we'll have 8 years at 7% rate increases, which is actually much lower than when we originally had done the model back when we first did the multi-year rate increase. This is lower than what we had originally forecasted we would be at this same point in time. The 7% will meet or exceed the coverage requirements related in the trust indenture. It provides predictable and stable financing, and it will allow us to do what we need to do under the Clean Water Plan and requirements with the EPA's federal consent decree. So when we look at this rate model, one thing I want to point out is we're not just looking at what does it do for the rates between 2022 and 2026. This model goes out actually through 2036, and we actually look at where we are going to end up based on the assumptions that we know today, which again, it's an estimate. So everybody understands estimates change. They're only as good as the information we have available to us at the time the estimate is made. But we look at where we think we're going to end up at the end of 2036. And by doing the 7%, this will actually be able to achieve that EPA high burden threshold. So we'll be able to stay within that threshold, which is a major goal of affordability. So when you look at the impact on a single family residential account, you look at where we are from an ALCOSAN perspective between where we are currently at 2021 and where the 7% increase takes us in 2022. We're looking at an incremental ALCOSAN monthly cost of $3. So the individual bill will go up $3 a month or $36 a year is really what we're talking about for the first 7%. And then what I did with this chart you've seen before, I just updated it to take 5 years off the top and to add the 7% on the bottom. So if you look here, we are really consistent at keeping these at 7% increases for each of those years, which when you look at the amount of work and you look at the amount of capital expenditures that we are incurring in that time period, I think that is really remarkable that we're able to do that at the 7% rate increase level. Okay, that is my rate update. So if there's questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Karen, this is Ruth Ann. So on these screens and everything, we're really only talking about ALCOSAN's increases, correct?
That's correct. The
So
one slide estimated what the municipal add-on charge may be, but I have no control over what the municipalities add on to their bill. So we really can only speak to the ALCOSAN component.
So the one chart, and I'm sorry which one it was, it did show you an estimate of adding the municipal rates on, correct?
Yes, that's correct. This one here.
So guesstimating the 800, and I apologize, I have new contacts, so I'm kind of working on this. $816 a year.
Correct. That's what the current bills would be, assuming a typical add-on of about $303 a year from the municipality for the conveyance charge. So our charge would be $513 for the actual treatment. And then the municipality would tack on an estimate. And again, when we're dealing with, 83 municipal customers, that charge is going to vary. But this is just an estimate. Again, an average of about $300 we're estimating would be the municipal add-on charge.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thanks, Karen.
Thank you.
Next topic on the agenda is an update on the clean water plan from Ms. Kennedy.
Thank you. So we hit a pretty major milestone at the plant expansion. So I was going to show you a couple pictures of our river wall completion as part of the clean water plan update, but I also wanted to hit on the fact that we issued notice to proceed and are beginning the Ohio River Tunnel final design, which is also another major milestone. So we awarded that in September, negotiated and awarded the fee in October. We had our kickoff meeting yesterday. We had plenty to talk about, and we have plenty more to talk about. But we are in the very early phases of the Ohio River Tunnel final design. I am going to share my screen and just show you a couple of what I find to be very interesting pictures from the north end. So just as a reminder to the committee, the north end is all the way at the northern portion of the wastewater treatment plant, and everything here shown in blue is going to be new. So we will have 2 new final settling tanks and a new chlorine contact tank, and this will be for our everyday dry weather flow up to 295 million gallons per day. And we'll have a new outfall. So what's shown in yellow is the river wall, and there is an opening for our new outfall in the river wall, and that river wall was completed about a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. So here it is. So this little curve out here is for the future final clarifier, final settling tank. And then this is the wall. And then you can kind of see the opening that'll be the new outfall. So our general contractor took a drone image, and that's what this is. But I think it's a really great progress update on the project, and it shows all the activity that's going on right now. And this is just one of 5 projects that are under construction and active at the plant right now. And here's another vantage point of the river wall. And you can kind of see we're really close to the railroad there, and we're putting in this, since this is a CSO line for a CSO that used to come straight through the plant that now needed to be relocated. So we built a shoring wall along the railroad, and that's still in process. And then just one more angle really shows you how squeezed we are here between the river and the railroad tracks, especially as you get towards the pinch point of the northern end of the plant. So we awarded that last May, the general contractor mobilized in August of last year. And just as a reminder, the North End plant expansion job actually has 2 consent decree requirements that we're fulfilling with disinfection, secondary effluent disinfection to 295, and then the 2 final settling tanks. And we are going to be working on that project until 2025. So we there's a lot of work to do, and we have to keep the plant in operation. So you can only move so fast. And then my last slide is just I've shown you this before, but this was just run today. So this just gives you an idea of we're making good progress on the couple of these projects. North End, we're already at 30% complete at about $32 million spent. And then the East Head Works, which is another, major $87 million project, we're $5 million in, and perhaps I'll show you some images of that mess in a future presentation. So that is all I had for the clean water plan update, but I'd be happy to answer any questions if you had specific questions about certain activities or components of the plan.
And I'm sorry, Ruth Ann's always asking all the questions, and this is an obscure, Kim, and you may not know the answer because it's kind of unrelated. So how far does the river have to rise before ALCOSAN's concerned about getting flooding down in that area? Is it, how many feet? It would be pretty astronomical, right? Flood in order to flood that area.
The river elevation is controlled by the Corps with the
right.
So I don't think it would get, it would be controlled to that elevation. That the problem is that in the system, when it rises, and it kind of can backflow into the interceptor lines. I think that's more of an issue because of the sediment and the silt from the river gets into the lines, and that kind of causes a problem for treatment. So we've got ways to mitigate that. But here at the plant, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that elevation is controlled.
Right, and you guys do a great job with it. I was just curious, so, okay, thanks.
Oh, go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, Ruth Ann, Hurricane Ivan was a really, really bad storm. And I think the tours I've taken of the ALCOSAN plant, even when Hurricane Ivan hit, the backflow up into the outflow only went halfway into the plant. So the plant was never breached in terms of the flood. So I don't know if that gives you any confidence that it won't be breached again in the future, but that was a pretty significant flood event, and it never breached into the plant.
Ruth Ann, one day we will give you a presentation about flood protocol and what we do to protect the plant, because I know you and Darla are very interested.
Well, with that, thank you, Arletta. Kim, and I think this ties into a question that I think Rebecca asked, which is, I had the chance to go on 2 tours, one in Cleveland and one in Washington, D.C. And those visits really reframed my understanding of the whole tunnel situation. In Cleveland, they were doing it in an area that was small, even though the hole was large. They were doing it in an area that was really small and contained. And in DC, they were doing it on a street between houses. And in DC, they were brilliant because even though it was a tunnel boring machine, they called it flood control. They never called it gray infrastructure. They talked about flood control, and it tweeted too. So that machine tweeted locations. So I think that when we start to think about even looking at our rivers, it's hard to imagine unless you see one of those tunnel, where it starts, that the only places that are disruptive is where it comes out. Not so where it's going to start and where is it going to come out at, because it was fascinating. It was one of the most fascinating things that I ever saw. And if anybody has a chance to go see a boring machine in action, I would strongly suggest that we do it because it's fun. It's not quite as fun as standing at the wet well, Doug, but it is fun.
I would second that. I was fortunate to be on the boring machine for the Port Authority tunnel that's underneath the Allegheny River when they bored that. It's part of my job, and it was quite fascinating. That's a much larger tunnel, of course, than these tunnels are going to be in diameter, et cetera. But it really is a piece of technology. It needs to be experienced.
So these 3 rectangular bowls, they're all rectangular that came from the granite company, are all white. Do they match the bathrooms?
Ruth Ann,
would look better, but we only have the one on site would be the problem with that.
Ruth Ann, you're not muted from us.
Sorry, I have a contractor here. I apologize.
Okay. Any more questions for Kimberly? Okay, next item on the agenda is report on the meetings with municipalities from Michael.
All right. Thank you, Mark. I'm going to be quick. I just have one slide to share. You see that? That's showing up yet? How's that?
Yes.
Okay. As many of you may or may not know, but Julia and Tim have been conducting one-on-one meetings with the municipalities. I believe that this is, correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, this is the fourth round of meetings. Prior to the growth cycles. This year, we've incorporated regionalization into the discussion. These meetings typically last, an hour to an hour and a half. They focus on 2 topics. Regionalization is one, and grow as another. Tim's obviously trying to work with municipalities to identify potential projects for grow funding in cycle 7. He's currently identified potentially 21 projects for cycle 7. And in those meetings, they talk about the potential projects, what type of project it is. I think there's a few sewer separation projects that are being identified, as well as some additional I&I projects that are being identified for cycle 7. Also included in the discussion is regionalization. Julia, our manager of regionalization, she wants to get the pulse on how municipalities are progressing with their repairs. Also, she's inquisitive as with regards to do the municipalities have any questions on the transfer agreements, or are there any obstacles to the transfers? Also included in the discussion are permit discussions. How are we going to transfer these facilities and obtain new permits for these facilities from DEP? So there's a lot of discussion at these meetings. They are one-on-one with each individual municipality, and potentially if questions don't get answered, as part of the initial meeting, follow-up meetings are being scheduled to continue the discussion. So we're Tim and Julie, hats off to them, staying actively involved with the municipalities, trying to answer their questions and keep the process moving. Tim, Julia, do you have anything to add to that, or?
I think you hit it on, Mike.
Did I miss anything?
Nope.
Okay. Very good. Very good discussions.
Anybody have questions or comments for Mike? Okay, thank you, Mike.
All right.
Next item on the agenda is discussion of waste load management and municipal information requests for Michelle.
Okay, hello, good morning. Thanks, Mark. So this is not as exciting as a tunnel boring machine, but nonetheless important. We will be sending out our annual request for, which is the annual waste load management information request, which will come out the first week of December. This we'll have an email blast, and also a hard copy will be mailed to all the managers and all the engineers that we have in our database. The request comes in regards to the requirements of Pennsylvania Code 25, Chapter 94, Section 12. We also will be asking for additional information on flow data that has been recently collected in 2021 and any mapping changes. That's a consent decree requirement of ALCOSAN, so that we felt it was a good opportunity to request it as you all are collecting information for your waste load information. If you're a combined sewer community, you'll be asked to provide a nine minimum control number 6 information, which is the control of solids and floatable. That's street sweeping, catch basin, cleaning, and some of your ordinances for litter control. And then we also have the annual CSO overflow status report. That's again a Pennsylvania DEP requirement that's part of a waste load submission for combined sewer systems. So that you will see coming in the beginning of December, hard copy in your mailbox. And we'll also be doing an email blast to all of our customers. And that information will be due back to ALCOSAN March 1st, 2022. If you have any questions, the contact information will be myself, which will be in the letter. And also Tim Prevost will be receiving the mapping information and flow data. So his contact information will be in that letter as well. So as always, if you have any questions, we're here to answer, so please reach out.
Now, the advisory committee members will not be receiving this letter unless they're either an engineer for a community or a municipal manager. Is that right?
That's correct. And this is something that is pretty routine for most municipalities. I think for decades, they've been providing the information.
Any further questions for Michelle? Thanks, Michelle.
Sure.
Next item is an update from Three Rivers Wet Weather, and Mr. Montz is with us today.
Thanks, Mark. Good morning, everybody. I am pleased to tell you that the municipalities, we heard a lot today about what ALCOSAN is doing, and they're doing a fantastic job. Can you imagine squeezing everything they have to do into that plant? I've said it's like a chess game. They have to get this part done to move to the next part. It's amazing on what they're doing. So the municipalities are going to have a lot of work. The separate sewer communities have received their orders, which require them to look at a gold line standard and do a reduction of 10%. There was 52 municipalities and 10 authorities that received those orders. As of today, 26 have returned those to the health department. So we're moving forward with that. The separate sewer communities the combined sewer communities have just received their orders. There's 14 of those communities. They received those within the last couple of weeks. We are still working with DEP on the mixed communities. That's 10 communities that have part of their municipality that are separate system and part that are combined. Those orders still are in DEP's hands and are in the draft form. We have held meetings with elected officials on the orders that have been distributed, and field a lot of questions through our system, and we have a lot of the question and answers, Q&As on our website. We have developed a extensive mapping system that allows the separate sewer communities to trace their sewer lines because, as you know, we talk this as a regional approach. These connection points go a lot beyond boundaries. So our new mapping allows communities to see the influence of a neighboring community on their community, which is essential in trying to have compliance with these orders. So we're moving a lot with that. We hold monthly meetings for your municipalities. ALCOSAN is always at those meetings, and the dialogue is, the in-person meetings have started much greater participation in dialogue. And so we're moving forward that. We're in constant communication, the Three Rivers here with ALCOSAN, to make sure that we're all working on the same page towards the same end goal. You know, you heard talk about rates earlier and what ALCOSAN is spending. These orders are going to require municipalities in total to spend millions and millions of dollars. So, you know, it's not just,
so he's all settled.
not just the ALCOSAN dollars that are being spent. Just as a side note, I was looking at some of those rates, and, you know, most of you know I was a former municipal manager for 30 years, and I look at those rates, and this used to always bother me. I think, well, $852 sounds like a lot. My cable TV and internet's over $200 a month, and I sit around every evening and complain, there's nothing to watch on all these stupid channels I have. So that's $2,400 a year that most everybody has in their house. So that used to infuriate me. So 800 doesn't sound bad when I sit and I like it when nothing backs up into my basement or on my street. But people don't see that. So I think you're getting the message out good. We held our annual SOAR conference, and ALCOSAN was there to present the plant expansion and treatments. Thanks, Kim and Mike and Tim did that. And we also were able to have Tim provide some input as to what a green project, how to do some calculations on what a green project can take out of the system as to inflow. And that was, you know, really good. And Tim was able to use his experience and expertise from the GROW program. So that was good that we heard a lot of positive feedback about. And then we also focused on another ALCOSAN project of these multi-municipal projects that we here at Three Rivers are fortunate enough to be able to help coordinate on how these municipalities can start to work together, mainly on the trunk lines in how to reduce I&I to facilitate a reduction in flow to the plant, and then also precipitate the transfer of these trunk lines over to ALCOSAN. So that's been really good. And just as a side note, nothing to do with Three Rivers, but as a member of the community, I belong to my Rotary group, and Joey came out and did a presentation on your plant expansion. And I will tell you, Joey, after you left at the next meetings, everybody was really fascinated on what you're doing. So kudos for getting that information out. You know, there was only maybe 20 of us there, but those 20 tell 5 each people, so it starts to add. So just wanted to give that on a side note that was very nice.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
No problem. Any questions for Dave? Dave, if you could, Dave, I'd put you on the spot. Do you, what's the date of your next Three Rivers weather meeting?
We're looking at the, with the holidays, we're looking at the 9th and 16th of December, because listening to the groups, we've broken down to committee meetings that, subcommittees that specifically deal with the type of system. So a separate source system will be on the 9th, and the combined would be on the 16th.
Great, thanks. I just want to make everybody aware of that, in case you're able to attend.
So Dave, I heard great things about your conference. I'm sure it was a lot quieter because I was out of town and couldn't be there. But Mary Ellen had a question about her mapping last time, and I'm not sure if she's on the phone or not. Did that get all squared away?
We are working on, especially the combined communities, on the mapping we did. Hi, Mary Ellen. We did, were able to provide some clarifications on the areas that went to it. But with any type of GIS mapping, we have to get into refining it a little bit more. And so now we're starting to work with individual communities. And we also have almost in the final stages, a mapping that will allow the combined communities to trace the sewer lines because of, again, the influence of a neighboring community and how everything needs to work together. And a lot of communities, Mary Ellen in particular, is one of the communities that has flow from separate communities, which was, as they reduce, her community would need to know that type of information because that can compound and fix hers. So we are working to enhance that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I appreciate, I'm hoping my engineers are working on, because I got some information from Three Rivers that deals with a specific CSO that the map shows that I have nothing in it going into that CSO, and yet I'm permitted, I'm reporting. So that was the one in particular, but Dave and Brad have been very helpful in trying to help me understand that. And I've sent that over to our engineer asking for answers. And so we're working on that. But it, like Dave said, ours is a fairly complicated system. So, but I appreciate all the help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Dave? I would also mention, Joey, I don't want to put you on the spot, but Dave mentioned, you gave a presentation to a community group. I'm sure you or another member of the staff would be able to do the same if anybody here attending knows of a community group or is involved in a community group that they think would benefit from hearing the ALCOSAN story. Reach out to Joey and I'm sure he'll be able to put something together for you folks.
Absolutely, Mark. Thanks.
Not a problem. Next topic on the agenda is some update from Jean.
Mr. Chair, I noted that Mary Ellen Ramage has joined us, who's a member, and I believe Lisa Werder Brown has also joined us, which means we have 10 members. I'm not sure, I need to ask the solicitor, is that a quorum?
You're muted.
Sorry, yes, thank you. 10 is a quorum.
Okay, perhaps I can speak now, or if you want to do the motion on the minutes, you could do that before I speak.
I will do that. So, did I have a motion for approval of minutes from our October 2021 meeting?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the minutes from the March meeting.
Thank you, Mary Lasota. Can I have a second?
This is Ruth Ann. I'll second it.
Second from Ruth Ann Omer. Any comments, corrections, or additions to those minutes? There being none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. The minutes are approved. Thank you. We'll get back to our agenda and Jean.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. And everybody, happy Infrastructure Week. Finally, we have been, I have been working both with our advisors in DC and our advisors in Pennsylvania about the various ways we're going to be attempting to tap into some of this funds so that we can make sure our ratepayers have some relief. Of course, we're looking at very big numbers. We are about to, I'm working with our local folks to bring together the Allegheny County delegation to educate them on what we need and what's available. It appears that most of the federal money will actually run through the state of Pennsylvania. And we have generally not been, it was not good for us to go through Penvest, but this is where the big money is. We are also in the process of talking to the Army Corps of Engineers on close to $100 million of projects immediately, and then to also join with them in a private partnership. It's part of the Renaissance of the Army Corps or something like that. That would be a long-term project for a large project, So those are all in the works. As I find information that would also be helpful to municipalities, I'll make sure it goes out to all the municipalities about what's available to them. So if you have any questions, remember, it just got signed yesterday. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jean. Any updates from members of the committee here today? Do not hear any, so make a note that there will be no meeting in December. Our next meeting will be a reorganization meeting on January 18th, right now scheduled for 2 p.m. I do not believe there are any public attendees. No, I do not see any. Right. So at this point in time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Dan.
I'd second that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mayor.
No, I'd second
We're
that.
adjourned, everyone. Have a happy Thanksgiving and great holidays. And some of you will see each other in January. I will not be here. Take care.
Thanks for being here today,
Thanksgiving.
Mr. Chair.
Mark,